let's move on to another sector. And this is a sector I'm sure you all know has been expressing a lot of frustration about the policy environment, not just at the national level, but more so at the local level. Let's hear from the mining sector, and representing that sector is John Ridsdel. He's the president of TVI Minerals Processing Incorporated. I'm sure you have 10 on your list, but let's have 3 at least.
Well, I was going to start out by saying that, unlike Bill Lew's, we're the other side of the duck analogy, and that is trying to duck all the brickbats that are being cast our way. Unfortunately, all the brickbats and all the bricks that are coming at the mining industry are the result of a considerable amount of misinformation. So I'm going to borrow from one of the missed recommendations and make 4 recommendations. My first recommendation to government is not to believe all of that stuff that is coming from the sources of misinformation, because there is a lot of misinformation coming about the mining industry. The reality is that the Philippines is, just by way of background, the 5th most mineralized country in the world, with a considerable amount of mineral potential for minerals development.
But that we should believe.
Sorry?
That's what we should believe, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Believe everything I say, but nothing that the opposition says. That's and that is also generally accepted, even by accountants. However, last year we accounted for something in the order of 1% of GDP at $1.5 billion of gross total production, which compares with the manufacturing industry very negatively or minimally, and also even with the remittances. We would therefore, the flip side of the small footprint of the mining industry, or the small presence of the mining industry, is an important point for us to make, because much of the argumentation is about the hugeness of the footprint and the applications that are going along around the country. In fact, the total the physical footprint of the mining industry in the country last year was 60,000 hectares, or 0.2% of the 30 million hectares of the country. And I'll come in a moment to recommendations which would progress from that. The first recommendation is that the industry is recommending to government that we need a consistent, predictable framework to encourage mining investment. This is not only by foreign investors, but equally national investors who are investing considerably in the mining industry. There's a lot of notion that it's all foreign, and that's not true. So what we need for a consistent, predictable framework, and I know the government is working on this, is the code words for this are alignment of national and local government unit activities. And what that really means, of course, is for the government to resolve the issues of the national government going in one direction and the local governments going in a different direction. If you can imagine it from the point of view of any investor, you come in, you make an investment of a considerable amount of time and money under a regime, and then 5 years later a province comes along and changes everything. And in the case of our company, put in an ordinance that would ban our operations, which were already invested and already producing. That said, and the other part of the stable, consistent, predictable framework is that we do believe, and I think the mining industry is not unfriendly to the local government units. That's where we work. And we do believe that the local government units have a legitimate complaint in terms of their cash flow. So we would argue that the government should take steps to improve the cash flow from mining benefits or from mining taxes to the local government units, and also to capacitate the local government units as well. Second recommendation is that we are recommending to the government that they coordinate, integrate, streamline the approvals process. The approvals process for mining is very heavy in the country, and that has to do with a number of different agencies with overlapping and in some cases contradictory rules and regulations. The view of the mining industry and other resource industries is that apart from the potential of the country, we also have a need to know. We do have a need to know. We know that there's a potential for huge minerals development capacity, but we don't know until we explore where it is, how big it is, how feasible it is. And so a wise resource development policy, in my view, is to make the application to explore process as quick and as simple as possible so that companies can get in there and explore. In the minerals industry worldwide, of every 25,000 prospects that are identified, one turns out to be a mine, which involves a huge amount of risk of capital and time and everything, and we need to be able to get in there and explore that the potential of the country. In the Philippines, that ratio may be lower because of the mineralization. It may be 1 in 5,000, but it still indicates how important it is for us to be able to get in there. And to some extent, you know, not get everybody excited before we know whether there's anything there to be excited about. Part of the streamlining process has to do with the National Commission on Indigenous People. Again, some of the rules are conflicting. The NCIP really does deserve greater capacitation, greater budget. The process of getting free, prior, informed consent from Indigenous people, which the mining industry completely supports, is supposed to take 90 days, and I'm not aware of it ever. It's very seldom takes less than a year, and that's an important one. And then thirdly, the third recommendation that we would make currently to the government is to really address the problem of small-scale mining. The MGB, the Mines and Geosciences Bureau, estimates some 300,000 people involved in the illegal small-scale mining business, generating something in the order of $43 billion in illegal, unreported production, huge tax leakage. In the excise tax alone, something in the order of 850 million pesos that would be taxed if it were regulated properly and reported, let alone the income tax aspects. And the other point of that is that it's the industry that's resulting in environmental damage, deaths of people getting, and neither of those points can be emphasized too much. Not to mention, it gives the industry and government and everybody else a very bad name. One of the aspects of small-scale mining is that it comes under provincial jurisdiction. And that means that the capability for regulation in the country, which is the very capable Mines and Geosciences Bureau, is not at play. It comes under provincial jurisdiction. They're not getting any money from industrial mining, and they're getting all sorts of mining revenue from the small-scale mining, and that has to do with the disconnect in policy of the country. And so those are our recommendations.
All right, so political leadership, technical support, and fairness from the media. That's basically what you're saying. Thank you so much. We hear you loud and clear. Let's now move on to the final sector of the 7 represented here. A sector that has been, well, described as the most fun in the country. At least that's what the marketing message is. But in reality, it's a sector that is really panicking because of a lot of disconnect in policies and a lot of lists of things that need to be done that haven't quite been done. So let's hear from the tourism sector, represented by the, not just a spokesperson, but rather the president of the Philippine Travel Association, Travel Agencies Association, Aileen Clemente. Aileen, your wish list, I know there's a lot of them.
Thank you, David. Well, if the goals of the tourism sector is very vast and complex, as you mentioned, but I think it can be, put it simply, be said that it is providing a great and seamless customer experience. Having said that, I had a friend from World Bank, not Secretary de Ocampo, but to put it in a tangible experience, it takes actually 8 hours to get from Manila to Boracay. You clear the airport for 2 hours, you check in at the airport for another hour, you ride through traffic, you take a transfer from Calibo to Katiklan for another hour, 30 minutes boat ride, 30 minutes check-in. So you've already spent your experience for 8 hours of your supposed vacation in this manner.
And we're not even talking about Roro, right?
And
it's
we're
just
not
an airplane ride
right.
to Boracay.
So I think that makes it more tangible for everyone instead of just appreciating the nice beach, nice hotel, that kind of thing. Having said that, the tourism sector has also moved forward because the Tourism Act of 2009, after 10 years or more, has been passed in 2009, and it's in its implementation stage. There are several parts of that, but right now, for the programs that we need to move forward with for 2012 is the National Tourism Development Plan, which is almost a catch-all of all the issues and challenges of the tourism sector, because it includes airport development and improvement, infrastructure needs identification, connectivity strategy, soft skills and support services development, and instilling culture of tourism, and most importantly, statistical basis on the achievable targets, tourist arrivals, capacities of destinations, and gross receipts. And the second program on our wish list is the adoption of policies that encourage and ease the means of investing and doing business in the Philippines for the tourism sector. Under the Tourism Act, there's already the Tourism Infrastructure Economic Zone, similar to a PEZA, but this is for tourism-related activities. And that one needs to move forward. And also, maybe this is a phrase that I coined, remove the turfing. Sometimes we become too territorial that a piece of paper has to pass through every single government agency imaginable. Data sharing, this is an international goal, especially of airports and IATA, to share data from travel agents all the way to immigration, customs, and airlines. This already removes a lot of the things that we fill up at the airport. Ease the prohibitive and erroneous taxation of both airlines and of travel agents, and also fix the overtime pace of the customs, immigration, and quarantine. And stability of policies, meaning no scope creeps in the middle of a 10-year plan, no policy creeps in the middle of doing business. These are the ones that are for us, for the tourism sector. And the acid test for us is actually in 2012 because ADB has a very big meeting this May. So I think if there's a duck paddling very hard, it's the tourism sector to have its act together in 2012. And we also have the PATA Travel Mart for the leisure business sometime in June. Thank you.
And if not, it's still fun in the Philippines, right? Yes. We're done with that first question. We may entertain one question from the floor. I could throw one myself, but I'd like to give the floor to the participants of this forum. But if there's none, let me just throw this into the group. The policies, programs you've all mentioned are very similar to ones mentioned in the past by either your predecessors or by yourselves when you've appeared in similar fora in the past. It'll take some time, indeed, for these to happen. Some serious academics have, and not just politicians, but serious academics have actually suggested, why not reopen discussions about changing the provisions in the Constitution for allowing foreign equity. It's politically incorrect sometimes to mention this in a popular administration, and in past administrations, it's been synonymous with the perpetuation of power. Now that suspicions are more or less out of the way, given the relative popularity and transparency of this government, if you were to agree with some sectors, do you think that's something we should seriously talk about, as opposed to just these piecemeal reforms and policies? It's about time we got serious about talking about it. The Senate President, the House Speaker have begun discussions on their own. Is it time the private sector got in this? Anyone like to speak?
David, let me try. The foreign ownership is not really an issue, given that you can have up to 100% ownership in a lot of manufacturing activities. And the reason why I wanted to comment that is that sometimes when you look at sectors and industries, we tend to think that we can make major brushstrokes and say that's the problem. Take, for example, power. No?
So you don't think the absence of capital is a problem?
Yeah, of course it is absolutely. But what I'm driving at is that we have major recommendations, but we need granularity. When you look at manufacturing, you're talking about 60, 80 industries, and they have different solutions. Example, power. Everybody said, why invest here if power is high anyway? No, it's valid for, say, semiconductor. Pero when you look at all kinds of manufacturing, the average usage of power is only 5.8%, meaning some use 3% of total cost, some use 3%, some maybe 60%. So I think as we go to sectoral planning, which DTI will be doing, that's where we need to find the sector-specific problems and provide sector-specific solutions. That's my...
Would anyone else like to come in? Aileen, high hopes for the tourism sector. People have seriously said it cannot happen without huge investment. And that investment can only come from overseas, some would say.
I think the huge investment is secondary to what is resonating here, which is ease of doing business. If you make that easier, it becomes more efficient, capital will flow in much faster. So if we cannot fix that, I think, that's primary for all of us.
Anyone else like to, yes, Mr. Schumacher?
I think in Arangkada, we have made it very clear that an opening of the economy would make sense. I think the competitiveness of the country would improve also because of more competition that would come in. If you look at the sector that I presented today, at the creative industry, let's not be scared of professionals from overseas. If we look at retirement and healthcare, let's not be scared in having doctors from overseas here. I think there could be fundamental changes if we said, yes, we will open up and from that point of view be more competitive in future.
Well, it's worth discussing at least. We have a full program ahead of us. I'd like to conclude this forum. Let's give a big hand to our panelists. Let me introduce them again because we moved very quickly earlier on. Thanks so much, Philip Soliven, Alfredo Ayala, Henry Schumacher, Michael Raeuber, Danilo Lachica, John Ridsdel, Roberto Batungbacal, and of course, Aileen Clemente. Thanks so much. And up next, we'll have an interesting discussion on infrastructure. But before that, thank you so much.